Ishwarama's resplendent sun. It's the start of a bright new day. Time to rise, time to shine, Lord divine. Time to lead us along life's way. Awake, Lord of Buddha party. Awake, O Lord, over all mankind. Awake, O Lord of compassion, that the world good fortune may find.
Start the program. And before we do, I want to make sure that all of you can see Joy, that all of you are able to hear her. We're trying to get a speaker system set up, but we had to go after some more batteries because we didn't have the right size batteries for different people's equipment, but we didn't know that before we started. But if we didn't have a flaw or two, nobody would appreciate all the good things. So that's what we're working on now. And before we start, Bill is going to lead a bhajan. And we're going to have a bhajan that's going to kind of pick you up and make you feel good about just being here and being alive and well and with Baba, and knowing that everything is right. It's in its right place. It's happening perfectly, and you're all where you're supposed to be today. So, Bill?
Okay. Well, after the talk I just gave, I realized that people's feeling worlds may be a little bit, concerned or worried or something. And just to bring the energy up to where it should be, let's sing Giving and Forgiving, because it seems so appropriate for something like this. And it's the attitude that Swami's been pouring through all of us anyway. So as we sing Giving and Forgiving, let's just pour that forgiveness all over Prasanthi Nilayam and all over the feeling world of everybody who knows Swami, so that the feeling even towards the people who were misguided is one of forgiveness. Okay, and I'll lead it. Giving and forgiving,
Giving and forgiving,
loving all the living,
loving all the living,
helping all the helpless,
helping all the helpless,
never with a selfish heart,
never with a selfish heart,
giving and forgiving, giving only love,
giving and forgiving, giving only love,
loving all the living, living only love,
loving all the living, living only love,
giving and forgiving, giving only love,
giving and forgiving, giving only love,
loving all the living, living only love,
loving all the living, living only love,
giving and forgiving,
giving and forgiving,
loving all the living,
loving all the living,
helping all the helpless,
helping all the helpless,
never with a selfish heart,
never with a selfish heart,
giving and forgiving, giving only love,
giving and forgiving, giving only love,
loving all the living, living only love,
loving all the living, living only love,
giving and forgiving, giving only love,
giving and forgiving, giving only love,
loving all the living, living only love,
loving all the living, living only love, giving and forgiving.
Now Wilma's going to introduce Joy.
Yes. Would you like to come and sit down? Are there spaces available back there so that she can sit down? Now I'd like to introduce to you, which you all know her anyway, this is Joy Thomas. And Joy lives her name. She's a joyful, joyful Thomas. And I see her at Puna Party every once in a while, and she's just bouncing around, and I go talk to her, and she's often gone someplace else, and always see a smile on her face, and she's just the greatest. So Joy will be speaking on what? Joy.
Let's talk about love.
Okay. On love. Okay.
Thank you, Wilma.
Oh, you're welcome.
Swami said to me on one occasion, he said, "Your name is Joy Thomas?" And I said, "Yes, Swami." He said, "Not Saint Thomas?" I said, "No, Swami, not Saint Thomas." A saint I'm not. But I wanted to continue for a moment with the topic that Bill introduced, because I had a very especially lovely experience with that. I happened to hear about it early Monday morning, and so all day Monday it was kind of going around in my head. And when I went to bed Monday night, I prayed to Swami to please give me a message, tell me something that would help me understand and comfort me. And the next morning when I woke up, I walked into the place where I usually sit and read and write and work. And I have just at my left hand the entire series of Sathya Sai Speaks, plus some of the Bahinis. And I just reached my hand over, pulled one of the books out at random, opened it at random, and I want to read to you what I read. The good are always the target of malice and envy, slander and abuse from the wicked. Be assured that your goodness can be made tough enough to stand these ordeals. Avatars are not exempt from the attentions of wicked forces. Krishna had to encounter these obstacles from the very cradle right up to the finish of his life on earth. Personal spite, false slander, unfounded abuse and defamation followed him at every step. Demons who could not tolerate the light and the love that he cast around him conspired to tarnish his name and obstruct his mission. They tried to bind him, to defeat his plans and pervert his instruments. But truth triumphed, and falsehood stood exposed and disgraced. Krishna is undefeatable, ever pure, ever bright, and ever effulgent in renown. Those who try to harm him are forever tarred by their own blackness. The malignancy of those who cannot bear his glory will cause their eternal disgrace. It cannot affect him in the least. His glory will increase 100-fold with every challenge from these peddlers of slander. Wicked men tried to bring the Lord into disrepute by persecuting and torturing his devotees. But when they stood up to every challenge with joyful fortitude, the enemies failed ignominiously. Even today, such things happen, but all of you must recognize their inevitability and their fundamental falsehood, and carry on your sadhana in full faith and assurance, and with undiminished enthusiasm and joy. The Sai principle, the Sai divinity, can never be affected by any slander. It can never be shaken by any tactics. Its progress can never be halted. I am unaffected by praise or blame. My Ananda never suffers diminution. Where there is love, there is Ananda. Where there is Ananda, there is music. That is the reason why Krishna sang the Bhagavad Gita while the clarion calls to start. The Holocaust were rising from the serried ranks, eager for the fray. But love knows no fear, no untruth, no anxiety, and no grief. I am love. I shower love. I share love. I am pleased with love. I bless that you have more and more of love to more and more beings. Love is God. Love is love. This is my message to you. So I was considerably comforted with that, and I hope all of you will feel comfort as well. I wanted to talk about Swami's love for us and his care for all of us. And in thinking about the thoughts that I wanted to bring to you today, I came across a quotation from Swami: "Hold all of your wealth and all the members of your family in trust for God." Well, I don't know about the wealth angle. We all have our own ups and downs with that part of it. My dentist said recently that in China this is the year of the rabbit, but here it's the year of the cash flow problem. And I decided to just let that go completely and talk about family. Because I would suspect that there's not one of us who hasn't had a member of our family that we would love to bring to Swami. I see little smiles of recognition back there. I have 2 children, one of whom is a born-again Christian, and the other is with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And that's my daughter, and she lives at the Maharishi International University in Fairfield, Iowa. And studying the Vedas, as she does, and of course as Swami teaches us, it gives us a lot in common and a lot that we can discuss. And she has always been eager to hear. The moment I get back from a trip to India, she wants to know everything Swami said and everything that happened. But she is very careful that I completely understand that Maharishi is her master and Swami is mine. And that's the way it's going to be. So when I was in India this year, and I received a letter from my daughter, and inside that letter was a letter addressed to Swami. I was, as you can imagine, extremely pleased. And I was so eager to get that letter to Swami. As soon as it arrived, I began praying to him. Swami, there is a letter here from my daughter. Please take it. Oh, Swami, please take my letter. And when I arrived at Darshan that afternoon, the Sevadal took me down to the front row and set me down. And I sat right, not where, those of you that have been there, you know that when Swami comes off the veranda, frequently he angles toward the gate. And I was sitting back further, near where the ladies' chairs are. So I was a little concerned that he wouldn't come back that way. So I prayed to him continually while waiting for him to come out. Swami, it's a letter from Kathy. Please come take the letter from Kathy. And as he came off the veranda, and he spent only about 3 seconds talking to the boys on the veranda before he came out, which is very unusual. And he came off the veranda, looked at me, never took his eyes off me, came straight to me and held out his hand. And I held up the letter with such joy. I said, "Oh, Swami, it's from my daughter." And he said, "And where is she?" And I said, "She's in Fairfield, Iowa, Swami." And he smiled very sweetly and tucked the letter in and walked away. Well, when he got over to the other side of the darshan area, to the men's side, he went up to my husband and he said, "And how is your daughter?" And, well, Ray and I are one of those families, as Swami referred to at one time, musical chairs, you know. So when Ray and I were married, he had 2 children and I had 2. So he has a daughter, and he wasn't real sure whether Swami was asking about his daughter or whether he was asking about Kathy, because, of course, he didn't know what had gone on the other side. So he thought a minute, and then he said, "I don't know, Swami." Swami smiled, and he said, "Well, I will see her." And he was just so loving and so gracious. And I know that he will see her, that he is seeing her. He is all names and all forms. And I feel very comforted that he is with her all the time. She is progressing beautifully in her understanding. And it's just so comforting to know that he not only takes care of us, but he takes care of every member of our family. And I want to share something with you today that's even more special in that regard. If you have a member of your family that you would love to have understand your devotion to Swami more, or that you would love to have be with Swami, I hope you will find this very comforting. I have a friend that is spending most of her time in Prasanthi Nilayam and wherever Baba is. And so she was, when we were there, she spent a lot of time with us. Every day she would go over to the hotel and send a fax to her brother, trying to get him to come to Prasanthi Nilayam. And she would get an answer back, "No, I am not interested. I will not come." And so she would send another and say, "Oh, please come. I want to see you so much." He'd send a fax back and say, "Meet me in Australia," and or "Come home, and you can see me." "No, I will not come." And he had come once, 5 or 6 years before, and stayed one day and left. And he just had very great concerns that devotion to Swami would be in conflict with his previous religious training. But in recent months, he had had a very unhappy relationship. And his sister knew that he needed Swami so much and that Swami could help him so much. So she kept praying for him to come and begging him to come by long-distance telephone and by fax messages. But up until the day Swami called us for interview, his answer was definitely no. So when Swami called us into the interview room, he is so sweet and dear as always, and he asked everybody, "What do you want?" And when he came to her, he said, "What do you want?" And she said, "Oh, Swami, I want you to bring my brother to your lotus feet." Swami looked kind of surprised at the request, and he turned his head a couple of times, and then he said, I will change him." And she was so thrilled. We were all so thrilled because, you know, frequently Swami says, I will see, or I am taking care, or later, or wait, or, you know. But he said, yes, I will change him. The next day, she got a message at the hotel. They sent a messenger to tell her to come. The message said, I will come and meet you in India. It was her brother. So we were gone by the time he got there, but they were in Kodaikanal. And as soon as they arrived, Swami saw to it that they were both issued guest badges. And he had the brother, whose name is Mac, he had Mac placed right in the front row every day, day after day. He would come, he would stand in front of Mac and just gave Mac every possible attention. I want to read you in her own words what my friend had to say about this experience, in her words, because all I could do is tell you secondhand. I want you to hear it firsthand from her. She said, what an extraordinary gift and blessing to have directly witnessed Mac's transformation in our Lord's tender and gracious hands. I just can't tell you. My heart was constantly thrilled and overflowing with love and gratitude. At first, Mac was rather skeptical and taciturn. He'd be sharp with me sometimes in the evenings, and several times I took umbrage with his harsh choice of words and his manner of expression. Then he would say, I am not angry. And I would tell him what a great guy he was, and that would end the debate. The problem, I think, was really one of self-confidence, as I suppose all problems are. I love the teaching given to us by Swami and repeated in A Course in Miracles, that we think we have many problems, but there is only one really. We've forgotten who we are. Currently, Swami is pounding it in with even more fervor than usual. I want to tell you a bit more about Swami and Mac. When we arrived at Kodaikanal, we were promptly given guest badges. Our lovely Lord gave him so many wonderful chances. Just about every darshan, he came close and looked at him, but Mac held back. He felt that Padnamaskar was the ultimate surrender, and he declined each of Swami's many offers. Of course, Swami knew that his gorgeous flower-petaled feet wouldn't be pounced upon for some time by Mac's huge hands, which match his 6'4" frame. Mac even felt strange with his hands in namaskar position, but Swami's love evoked a sort of half namaskar from him, with his hands interlocked and folded before his heart. Swami whopped the top of this semi-namaskar salute, and a photographer auspiciously snapped a knockout picture of Swami and Mac, with Mac fairly bursting with joy. Mac told me that he and the Lord would look into each other's eyes for long periods as Swami gave those 20 discourses Bill told you about. I could see this even from the ladies' side. Mac told me that he could see Baba's aura, and he kept me posted each day as to its size and color. The first night that we were called in, we were in Swami's house for about 2 hours. Mr. Singh and Anil Kumar gave very brief addresses, of course. Of course, Mr. Singh sang his. Then Swami spoke, and his words were pure nectar. Many times he seemed to be addressing Mac directly on topics which I knew to be very relevant. Then it seemed to me that he cast his eyes my way, saying, "You see, I'm keeping my promise to you." I smiled so long and hard that my face ached. 40 minutes after we returned to our hotel, Mac began to vomit. He jettisoned about 2 quarts of unneeded stuff in less than a minute. It was amazing. I held his head, and I have never seen anything comparable to it. Later, when he had caught his breath and he was totally empty, he told me humbly, I prayed to him to pierce my heart if that's what it took for me to let him enter. And it seems that during this emptying process, something slammed into my heart with terrific force, causing great pain. Then she says, I knew then that the corner had been turned and I had a new brother. But there's more. We followed Swami to Uti in the South Indian Grand Prix. Mac's reaction to this wild pace, those of you that haven't done this may not relate, but it's an experience. Everybody jockeying to get into the first position next to Swami. She says, we holed up at the Fern Hill Palace. You probably remember the mad stampede into the Bhajan Hall at Uti. I'll just take a little break there and tell you, if you haven't been to Uti, it's fascinating, because when it's time for bhajans, there is a door into which the entrance is made into the bhajan hall, and there's a flight of stairs going up to the door. And there's a wall, of course, on the one side of the stairs, which, is easily this high. And in order to get a good place as near Swami as possible, people don't pay any attention to the stairs at all. They just vault over the wall to try to get in first. So anyway, she says, you probably remember the mad stampede into the Bhajan Hall at Uti. Well, it continues unabated. Mac said that he just wasn't up to joining the stampede, and so he thought he would skip afternoon darshan. Somehow, thank you, I'll need that later. Somehow I persuaded him to come, and we were blessed with good places in line. Mac ended up seated in a spectacularly good spot opposite the men's quarters and very near the door. So he was first in the hall for bhajans and had the prime location immediately in front of Swami. When Swami entered, he walked directly to Mac, standing in front of him as he asked, where are you from? America, Swami, Mac answered, the state of South Carolina. As I had strongly advised Mac to get Swami's permission to leave, Mac continued, permission to go May 5th, Swami? Yes, yes, Swami said with a big smile. Then my brother got up on his knees. The Lord stood patiently, obligingly waiting. Mac gently moved Swami's robe, bent and kissed both of his holy, divine, little precious feet. Thus it was in the same place where I had first offered myself in full surrender to his lotus feet that he fulfilled the promise he made to me in our interview in Puttaparthi on February 1st this year. He said, I will change him. And he did, totally.
I just want to say I was with Mac the whole time that all happened. Just the way you said it.
Terrific. As I say, I can't give up firsthand. I should have had you do this. But it's such a marvelous story, isn't it? This thing of love, it's probably, of all, it's the most important. we know that Swami loves us. And he expects and wants that we should love everyone as he loves us. I began to realize this early in my knowing Swami, and I sat down to write him a letter one day, and it just came out in the form of poetry. And my dear friend Kumar brought me a photocopy from the one of the 1983 Sanatana Saratis. And so I will read you this letter that I wrote to Swami. Incidentally, I wrote it to Swami, I mailed it to Swami, and the next thing I knew, it appeared in Sanatana Sarati. So I thought that was rather interesting. I called it Teach Me to Love. In my youth, I prayed for houses with broad lawns, swimming pools, fancy cars, fame, security, and knowledge enviable by all. As I matured, I asked for peace and joy and the privilege of helping others in their search for truth. Today I have but one petition, Lord. Teach me to love. Indeed, it is my greatest and my only need. Not that love which I once deemed most fair, the love that sees a sufferer and longs to teach him to walk my own tried path. Now I ask for wider vision and the gift to know that your grace is love beyond compare, that suffering is only a word we use to describe the tug of war between your will and ours. Teach me, precious Baba, to love you with such unadulterated faith that all temptation to help you do your work is washed away. Teach me the love that neither likes nor dislikes anything in all your universe. That love which feels no pride nor shame, which does not waver when assailed by praise or blame. That love which, though receiving no appreciation nor cooperation, still humbly serves. The love which casts out fear and asks for nothing, knowing you are here. O Swamiji, free me from all desires save one. Teach me to love. I want to share with you how he answered that prayer, that plea that I sent to him. Shortly after this, as we went on a visit and he called us in for an interview, in the course of the questioning that always goes on in the interview room, he said to me, "How many children do you have?" And I said, well, I have 2, and Ray has 2, Swami. And he said, yes, musical chairs. And then he looked at me and he said, you have 7 children. I thought, 7? Where did he come up with 7? You know, how could I have 7 children? I don't have 7 children. I have 2 grandchildren, but even if I counted Ray's 2 children and my 2 children and my 2 grandchildren, that only makes 6. How could he tell me I have 7 children? So I went round and round with this for months. Why did he tell me I had 7 children? Makes no sense at all. One day I picked up the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ. I opened it at random just to get a little word of inspiration, and my eyes focused on the line which said, 7 is the number of the infinite, the number of the all. And just with a flood of inspiration, I realized that he was telling me that all are my children, that I should love everyone in the same way that I love my children. My children are absolutely, completely acceptable to me, no matter what they do, no matter what they say, no matter how they treat me or anyone else. I love them. I love them completely, unconditionally. And I realized that Swami was telling me that that is the way that I must love everybody, with that same unshakable, unconditional love. We don't love people for what they do or what they say. We love them because the spark of divinity is within them, no matter what is going on in this dream world. Very shortly after this realization, I had a very unusual experience. I have a neighbor, and I've never told anyone this before. It's in my book, and you may have read about the experience, but I never told anybody one of the crucial factors. But I've been seeing TV and about some things that are going on here in Grants Pass, and I thought maybe this is a good time to share the full story with you. My neighbor is a longtime friend, and when I moved out to Cherry Valley, we were both living in Diamond Bar, and when Ray and I moved to Cherry Valley, she moved. She wanted to be next door. She bought the house next door. And one of the things that has always caused me great pain, I love her, and I could not bear her husband. He was insufferable. They were married quite young. They had 2 children. And after that, he chose to be homosexual. And this caused her great pain. And he was not only into this lifestyle, but he took it upon himself to make it very blatant and make everybody else around him aware of what he was doing. And while his wife worked to support the family, he would entertain men next door to me, and I would see them coming and going. You can imagine what this did to me. I hated that man more than anything I can tell you. It was a real serious pain within me. And I prayed to Swami on a number of occasions to heal me of this hate, because I recognized it for what it was. And as time went on, I began to feel this lovely, unconditional love for almost everybody in the world. And one day I said, you know, Ray, I think I can love everybody in the world but this one man. He's the only one. I cannot love him. He is so cruel to his family, and he's just so crude. And I just cannot love him. And so after writing to Swami about it and praying to Swami and knowing that what he meant was that I must love everybody, I had a dream one night. And I dreamed about this man. And he had snuck into my house, and I had something on my altar. I'm not sure what it was. I wasn't in my dream. It was fuzzy. I don't know what the item was. But he stole something off my altar and went away with it, took it with him. And I was trying to decide in my dream whether I should attempt to confront him with what he had done and try to get the item back, or just what I should do. And in my dream, I realized again that I needed to just turn this completely over to Swami. So I said, Swami, it's all yours. I will do nothing. You are the doer. You do whatever needs to be done about this. And as I was waiting quietly for an answer, a knock came on my door. I went to the door, and it was this neighbor. And he had this object in his hand. And he said, I came into your house, and I stole this from you. And I am so sorry. He said, I didn't mean to do anything like this. Will you please forgive me, and will you take it back? And I woke up. In my dream, I forgave him. As a matter of fact, I even felt a little love for this man who had done this, who had made this generous offer to return what he had taken and to ask for forgiveness. As I realized the next day, the dream had somehow changed me. I felt differently toward this man. And suddenly I realized what Swami had done. He had done what I asked him to do. He'd taken all the hate out of my heart and turned it into love. And I no longer felt that difficulty that I had felt for so many years. It wasn't very long after that that the gentleman died. And I attended his funeral. And his son came up to me and he said, you know, we had the most wonderful thing happen. He said, we had all resented Dad so much. And he said he was so cruel to our mother and things were so painful in our family. But all of a sudden, it seemed to just disappear. And at the end, he asked for our forgiveness. And we all felt such love for him. It was just fine before he died. We felt that he died in peace. And all of this came together for me. I realized that in my dream, the item he had taken from me was my peace of mind and my ability to love everyone. And with Swami's grace, he returned that. As he did, all of this hate disappeared. And not only for me, but for all of the members of the family. So this was one of my wonderful, wonderful experiences with Swami teaching me to love. Later, there was another incident at the ashram. We classify people in categories, and sometimes we find it difficult to love whole categories of people. Now, I didn't have this particular problem, but I have talked to some friends who live in India, and they have a little difficulty in their relationship with the people who are called untouchable in India. And this has been, I guess, a problem for many, many years. I know that it is disappearing under Swami's tutelage. But at the ashram, I have depended a great deal on taxi drivers because when events are held in the stadium, I'm not able to go unless I have someone to drive me. So on this one occasion, I was waiting for a driver to come, and the driver who had told me he would be there at 6:30 did not show up. And at 7 he was not there, at 7:30 he was not there, and it was time for the event to begin. We have a dear little sweeper in our building, and as I was sitting there waiting for the driver, And the sweeper realized what was going on, and he came up and he said, I don't know whether you could all see, but what he did was he tapped his muscles, showing me that he had good, strong muscles, and he held his hands as if he were pushing the wheelchair to show me. He doesn't speak a word of English. I don't speak a word of his language. And, but we communicate. So I said, yes, yes, let's go. So he took the wheelchair and he pushed as fast as he could go over the hills the back way to the stadium. And he was so happy, and I was so happy. I would not have been able to go at all. And so when we got there, Gita was just getting ready to take off on the procession, and he pushed me in front of Gita, and one of the lady Save-It-Alls grabbed the wheelchair, and I was in the procession in the wheelchair right in front of Gita. And when the event was over, and one of the lady Save-It-Alls pushed me out to outside the stadium, there was the sweeper waiting for me. And he pushed me back to my room, carried the wheelchair up the stairs, brought it into the room, folded it up to put it out of the way. And then as I was going to get some money out of my purse to give him, he quickly turned and left. And this has been the way that he has done everything for us, is empty our garbage, scrub our floors, whatever. He comes in, does it, and leaves. He doesn't wait for any money or any payment. He doesn't ask for anything. And little by little, I realized that I had a deep, deep feeling of love for this man. Such a gentle man, such a giving man, such a serving man. And so one day, as I was leaving the ashram, and the taxi was waiting. And as I started down the steps for the first time, he had never touched me or touched anything that belonged to me, any of my personal belongings, which I don't know, but I guess that's proper, right? And on this occasion, I looked at him, he looked at me, and he held his hand out to steady me as I walked down the stairs. And when I gave him my hand, I could see the eyes around me getting bigger. And I thought, you know, isn't this wonderful that Swami is teaching me to love and showing me how to do it and to share it with everyone else. I was getting better. I was learning to love a lot more, but it wasn't over. In Kodaikanal this past year, those of you who have been there know that, and maybe that wasn't true this year, I wasn't there this year, but last year and the year before, the ladies' chairs were at the bottom of the stairs. And there's a corner there, and it's filled with sand, and the balcony is right above. And so I was sitting there in my chair, and Swami came over from on the balcony. He leaned down over the rail, and he said, among other things, he asked me several questions that day, but one of the ones he asked was, how many children do you have? And I, you know, here I am, there's 300 or 400 people sitting around listening to this conversation, and I'm still overawed with Swami, and all I just said what came naturally. And I said, 2, Swami. And he looked down at me with sadness in his eyes, and he said, only 2. And I was so disappointed in myself. I wanted so much to give him the right answer and to know that the answer was not 2, the answer was all. But I had more to learn, more experiences to have. And so when I went home, they began again, gently, slowly, patiently teaching me to love. Now, I didn't seem to have any problems with individuals at this point. But I happen to have a very antique machine to which I'm attached. And this machine has given me good service. It's an old Xerox memory writer, which maybe some of you may have heard of way back when. And to get parts for it is difficult because they don't even make them anymore. And one day I called the Xerox company. I was having trouble, and they said they would send someone out. And one of the drives had gone out. They needed to replace a drive. And so they replaced it, but within only, I think it was about 45 days later, the same drive went out again. So I called them and told them what had happened, and they said, well, we're sorry, there's only a 30-day guarantee. Well, these drives aren't inexpensive, you know. And so I said, well, I would appreciate it so much if you would have someone just come out and check and see what needs to be done. So they said that they would, and sure enough, the repair lady appeared, and she checked the machine all out carefully, and she said I was right, that the same drive that they had replaced had gone out again, and she said, would you like us to replace it? In other words, was I willing to pay for another drive? And I thought, oh, I just can't do that. I just keep putting all this money into this old machine. I could buy a real good computer, you know, for that amount of money. I shouldn't keep doing this. And so I said, well, no, I guess not. And so she said, may I use your phone to call my service manager? So she was on the phone for a few minutes, and I wasn't paying any attention to what she was saying. She hung up and she said, I have discussed this with the service manager, and we have decided that the part was defective, and we are going to replace it at no charge to you. And I suddenly had this fabulous experience of total love for the Xerox Corporation. And, I mean, can you believe that? It was incredible. And I realized what Swami was talking about when he says expansion love. Bring everybody in, not just the one person you're dealing with, or maybe the two people that are involved, but everybody. So I had learned to love all of the Xerox employees, and the next test was even harder. I had met one lady in particular at, I think it was in Kodaikanal, who is very active in the Sai Baba Center of Zagreb, Croatia. And so we had corresponded, and she had told me, and of course I couldn't help but see on the news all the things that were going on, and what a difficult time they were having. And every time I would think, oh, those awful people, what they're doing to my friends, my dear Sai Baba devotees in Croatia, and are having this trouble, and it's these awful people who are doing it to them. And I said, wait a minute. This is not what Swami was teaching me. This is not the way it works. I have got to love every person in this conflict, not just my friends, not just the people that think the way I think, not just even the ones that seem to be the victims. I've got to love them all. And so I began working on this. And again, there reached a point where all of a sudden I knew I had it. And I loved everyone in this awful conflict, whether they seem to be the ones that were doing the awful things or whether they seem to be the ones that had awful things being done to them. Each of them had the divine spark within them. And this is a play. It's all Swami's play. How do we know what the end result will be? How do we know what blessing is going to come out of any incident or any experience? And so I found that one day I could say, I love everyone, all the Serbians, all the Muslims, all the Croats, everyone. Without exception, there is no one there I don't love. Well, I went back to see Swami. And he called us in for interview on February 1st of this year. I was sitting in the interview with my friend and the one that has the brother and a number of other friends. And because of the great love that these dear people showed to me, I was the last one. I moved very slowly, so I was the very last one to go in when Swami called our group inside, and all of them had saved the seat next to Swami for me. I never, ever felt such love in my entire life. Anyone that would give up the opportunity to sit next to Swami and let somebody else have it, greater love hath no man than this. So they put me in the seat next to Swami, and Swami took my hand in his and he held it. Through the entire interview, he held my hand. And he talked to my husband at great length. Finally, very suddenly, he turned to me and he said, "How many children do you have?" And I said, "Oh, Swami, all are my children." And he said, "She got it right! She got it right!" So it was a happy, happy occasion, for it looked as if Swami were a teacher and he had been struggling with this slow-learning pupil, and finally she made it and she got the answer right. So it was truly wonderful. I had, in thinking of this, I came across a poem that I had put in Life as a Game, Play It. And I just wanted to sort of rephrase it a little bit and say some of the things that my heart feels. So with apologies to Khalil Gibran, I would like to read this to you. Then we said to Swami, "Speak to us of love." He raised his head and looked at the seated devotees, and there fell a great stillness upon them. With his gentle voice he said, "When love beckons to you, follow him. Though his ways are hard and steep, and when his wings enfold you, yield to him. Though the sword hidden among his pinions may wound you, and when he speaks to you, believe in him. Though his voice may shatter your dreams as the north wind lays waste the garden. For even as love crowns you, so shall he crucify you. Even as he is for your growth, so is he for your pruning. Even as he ascends to your height and caresses your tenderest branches that quiver in the sun, so shall he descend to your roots and shake them in their clinging to the earth. Like sheaves of corn, he gathers you unto himself. He threshes you to make you naked. He sifts you to free you from your husks. He grinds you to whiteness. He kneads you until you are pliant. And then he assigns you to his sacred fire, that you may become sacred bread for his sacred feast. All these things shall love do unto you, that you may know the secrets of your own heart, and in that knowledge become a fragment of Sai's heart. And in Jesus' words, little children, love one another. Where's Wilma? You know, interesting, when I talked to Wilma, she said, I said, Wilma, how long do you want me to talk? And she said, as long as you want to. So I can go on, or we can quit, whatever is anybody's desire. We'll just, what time is it? What should we do?
25.
What is your pleasure? Would you like a... Okay, I have a suggestion. I want to tell you a little bit about Ray since this suggestion was brought up. Whenever we go to Puta Party, Swami gives Ray a great deal of love and attention. And on one occasion, he manifested a 9-gem ring for Ray. And in addition to that, I had a ring made for him, which some of you may have seen is about this big. And so he usually wears both rings. And Swami pays great attention to what Swami refers to as his big ring. And so on several occasions, he has blessed the ring and darshan. On one occasion, he came up and he looked at the ring and he went, if you didn't know Swami could whistle, he can. And then on another occasion, he made the sign of the cross over Ray's big ring. And on one occasion in the interview room, the ring has 4 medallions on it. And so Swami held it up to the whole group and he said, this is Shirdi Sai. This is Jesus. This is Om. And this is me. And on the recent trip, we had quite a ring incident. In the outer interview room, Swami asked Ray for his big ring. And Ray had taken it off and put it in his pocket. So when he didn't immediately come forward with it, Swami says, well, give me the 9 diamonds. And although the ring that he made for Ray has 9 different stones, Swami always refers to it as 9 diamonds. And so he said, give me 9 diamonds. So Ray handed him the ring and he showed it to everybody. I think he passed it around, didn't he? And he passed it around to everybody to let them look at it. And then he said, I will change. And he blew on the ring and this diamond appeared. I mean, it was enormous, the huge diamond. And he tried to put it on Ray's finger and it wouldn't go past the knuckle. It was too small. Well, Ray, it was interesting, all this size business, because before we left home, Ray had said, the only thing I want from Swami is that he should make my ring a little larger because it's too small. His 9 diamonds, he wanted a little larger. So here is this enormous diamond that Swami has manifested, and he can't get it on. It's too small. So he just left it there for the time being. And then when he called our group inside, he said, let me see the ring. So Ray handed him back the big diamond. And he looked over at me and he said, which do you like? Do you like 9 diamonds or do you like big diamond? And I said, oh, I like 9 diamonds, Swami. He turned back to Ray and he says, oh, I'm sorry, she likes 9 diamonds. And he blew the big diamond and it disappeared. And back came the 9 gem ring. But it fit him. It made it larger so that it fit him comfortably, which is exactly what he said he wanted. And we all had a lot of fun in the process. And whenever we've talked with Swami, Swami has always told me, what a good man. What a good man you have. He takes such good care of you. And I would like to introduce this good man to all of you. This is my husband, Ray. Ray had another very interesting story. If you think Swami doesn't know what you think, be careful what you think. Let's put it that way. We have a center in our home, which we've had since 1982. And as the center has grown larger, the house has grown smaller. And we keep putting a few more here and a few more there, but it's a little tight. So Ray began to get this idea that perhaps it would be better if we bought a larger house, so we have a bigger place for the center. And he started looking around, but he didn't find anything that was just right. And he mentioned it to me once, and I said, oh, no, let's don't. And so he never said anything to me about it again. He just kept on looking around for another place. So when Swami called us to interview in Kodaikanal, we were talking, he was talking to me and to another lady, and then he turned to Ray and he said, you've been thinking about selling your house. You're thinking about moving. Don't do it. You stay where you are. Good house, comfortable house, very good house. Don't move. So we hadn't said a word to Swami about it, but he knew. He knows everything. I still haven't got any word from Wilma. See what I did when I prepared 2 45-minute talks. So I have another 45-minute talk I could give you. Just say, does she want? Am I to keep talking or shall I quit now?
What would you like?
See what I mean?
I was looking for some racks for this thing. Has anybody seen it?
It's Such As I Speak, Volume 9, Chapter 22.
Yeah, I didn't. I said he put the racks inside. Are these the racks?
John, somewhat of your experiences with Swami. Yours.
You can go ahead if you like.
Said you can talk for you can do your other 45 minutes talk if you want.
Okay, everybody that wants to take a little break is, free to do that. And what I have been asked to do is to talk about Swami healing my knees. So if you would like to hear that, we'll do that now.
Sure.
Should we give everyone a short break and then maybe convene in 5 minutes?
I think we are interested in our lunch. It looks like it's imminent, so I'll make this short, but for those people that wanted to hear about the situation that I have been dealing with all my life, I was a premature birth, and it seemed that my knees were not properly formed. Everything else supposedly came together properly, but the knees never did. And as I was growing up, the doctors made several efforts. Interestingly, one of the things that they thought would definitely solve the problem was to remove my tonsils and adenoids. And that may sound strange to you younger people, but that used to be a standard procedure for whatever was wrong with you. And so I gave up my adenoids and my tonsils, but my knees did not improve. And as a teenager, one of my greatest sadnesses, I lived in southern Florida and graduated from high school and went to college there. And everybody water skied, and I could not because my knees would not support me. And I did try, and I was able to stand up for a short distance, but the pressure on the knees was just too great. And many times during this period, it was necessary for me to cease all activity and just stay in bed for a period of time in order for the pain to lessen enough for me to get around. Again, I all the way through a career as a teacher, I managed, but it began getting worse. And when I finally, as a teacher, I had Kaiser Insurance, and so I went to Kaiser and asked if there was anything they could do. They x-rayed and made examinations and finally said the only thing that would possibly solve the condition was a joint replacement. Well, at that time, those knee joint replacements were very rarely successful. And so they said that they would do it, but they did not recommend it. And after making my own little research into the situation and others who had had it done, I determined I was better off without it. So I struggled along, and the first couple of trips I made to Puttaparthi, I managed by just walking a few steps and finding a spot to sit on the wall and rest and then go on a little bit. But finally it came to, there was no way for me to get around except in a wheelchair. So I made a number of trips back and forth to India with the wheelchair and the cargo hold, and being pushed around when I was there by the grace of friends. And on one occasion in Puttaparthi, Swami came and asked me to come for an interview, and one of my friends pushed me up, and I walked inside. I left the wheelchair outside and walked into the interview room. During that interview, Ray asked Swami if he would do something to heal my knees. And Swami said, I am helping. And so I thought, when I came out, I thought, now, if Swami is helping, then I don't have to resort to the wheelchair. So I walked back to the apartment without using the wheelchair, and someone else brought it. And I walked then for a couple of days, but I ran into problems with, I had a respiratory condition, and it just became impossible to keep it up. When I went back to the wheelchair, the benefits seemed to disappear. And I was right back where I started. On 2 or 3 occasions, Ray asked Swami, would he heal my knees? And Swami would always say, I am helping. But as far as I could see, there was no change. When we went to, we were in interview in Vrindavan in 1990, and Ray asked Swami if we might come to Kodaikanal. And he said, no, he said, I will not be going to Kodaikanal this year. You come next year. That would be 1991. So in 1991, we went to Kodaikanal for the first time. It is an experience for anyone with bad knees, because the driveway at Kodaikanal is very, very steep. And to get a wheelchair up is extremely difficult because there are concrete runners, but it rains frequently in Kodaikanal, and the dirt area gets very muddy. So the wheelchair would have to be pushed with me in it up the steep driveway with one wheel in the mud and one wheel on the cement. So it was quite an operation, and it was a little embarrassing to me to have 5 or 6 Savadals push me up the hill every day. And I had really, hoped that the situation would improve so that that wouldn't be necessary. But there didn't seem to be any change. And day after day, we had lovely experiences with Swami's darshan. He talked to us, and we had a beautiful, beautiful discourse. We had all kinds of grace. He took the manuscript that I had at that time and blessed it and signed it and approved it for publication. But on the last day that we were there, we were going to be leaving the next morning, and we still had not had an interview. Now, interviews aren't all that common in Kodaikanal. The situation is different, and Swami does not call people in every morning and every afternoon in the same way that he does in Puttaparthi. So we really felt that, it was all over and we weren't going to have a chance to talk to him. I particularly wanted to give him this manuscript that I had brought, and so I kept praying for him to come. He came out of the house, he walked by me looking at all the people over here. Here I was, and I had the back of his head. And so I thought, well, that's that. He walked upstairs, he walked into the interview room and closed the door. But there had not been any signal given for us to leave at this point. And so we waited, and in about 10 minutes, he came out again. And he walked down to the house, and he came around, giving darshan the second time. So I thought, oh, this time, now, this is it. This will be the time. And he came by, walked by me. I got the back of his head. He talked to everybody on the other side, and he went back upstairs. So this was really it. He never gives darshan 3 times, never. So again, he went into the interview room. He was gone this time only 2 or 3 minutes. And out he came again. This time he walked down the stairs straight to me, walked right over to me. And I was probably not quite as far as this lady is from me now, away from the cement in the wheelchair. And it had been raining, the sand was wet, the sand was deep, the wheelchair was sunk into the sand. With one hand, Swami reached over, took hold of the wheelchair and pulled it to him, to the cement. Now, it would have taken 4 men to do that, but he did it with one hand. When it got to the cement, then he stepped away, and there was a line of men Sevadals standing right very close. And so Swami looked at them, and he went this way. Well, those of you that have seen the Sevadals with Swami, you know that all he has to do is just crook his little finger and they all run. Those men stood there and looked at the sky, looked around. They didn't budge. They paid no attention to Swami whatsoever. And so he looked at them and he waited, and then he signaled again. Come. They couldn't see him. They paid no attention whatsoever. Nobody moved. There were about 4 or 5 ladies, Sevadals, standing right there, and they got so nervous. They were so upset because these men weren't coming over like Swami asked. So they took hold of the wheelchair and they tried to get it up onto the cement. Now, the little difference between the sand and the cement was like about 1.5 inches or less. Very, very short distance. But with 4 of the ladies trying to get it up that little inch, it would not move. The chair wouldn't budge. It was just going to stay there. So Swami stood there patiently waiting, and finally he said, like, this is just too much trouble. And so then he walked up to me, told the Sevadals to move, and he walked over and he put his right hand on my right knee and held it just for a few moments. Then he moved the right hand over to the left knee and held it just a few moments. Then he looked at me and he said, "Come on." So I got up out of the wheelchair, and there is a long ramp up to Swami's house. Then the ramp goes up to the 2nd floor, back again to the interview room. So Swami and I walked together up to the house and then turned and walked back up the ramp toward the interview room. When we got to almost to the room, there were 4 stairs. And my heart skipped a beat because it's been a long, long time since I have been able to walk upstairs without holding on to anything. Usually what I do is I pull myself up by the handrail. And there were no rails, just 4 steps out here and nowhere. And I thought, Swami said, "Come on, I will walk up those steps." And they tell me that I floated up the steps. They said, "Your feet never touched them." I don't know whether that's true or not. The videotape looks like I really struggled to get up those steps. But anyway, we walked up and into the interview room. Meanwhile, all the people seated there were shouting, "Jai Sai Ram, Jai Sai Ram, Jai Sai Ram." They had all stood up and were chanting as we walked up. With all this excitement, I wasn't paying too much attention to what else was going on. But of course, when Swami called me, as is customary, the others in the group got up to come also. And so my husband and a friend, some of you may or may not know Helena Rowe, was right behind us. and we walked into the interview room. I was so thrilled, excited, happy. I looked at Swami and I said, "Oh, Swami, I could just hug you." And we were both standing there, and he straightened up, he put his hands down by his side, and he said, "Do." And so I put my arms around him and held him as if he were my child. And when we had talked about how wonderful it is to experience Swami as your mother, as your father, as your Lord. And one of the Indian ladies there at the ashram had told me, "You haven't really experienced him until you've experienced him as your child." And so in that moment, I experienced Swami as my child. And it was much, much more important and more beautiful than any healing could ever be. We had a wonderful, wonderful interview. There were just the four of us, and we were in with Swami for an hour and 15 minutes. And we talked about everything in our heart. It was just heaven, pure heaven. And on one occasion, Swami teased me, as he does, and he said, "Oh," he says, "you're so angry at Swami." He says, "You've been very, very angry at Swami." And I'm thinking, how could I be angry with Swami? And he said, no, he says, "You were angry in Vrindavan." He said, "You said, 'Here I am in Vrindavan, and Swami doesn't call me for interview.' You were so angry at Swami." And he said, "Then we got to Udi, and when we got to Udi, you said, 'Here we are in Udi, and Swami hasn't called me for interview.'" He said, "Oh, you were so angry with Swami." And he said, "Then ever since you've been here every day, you've been saying, 'The time's almost up and Swami hasn't called me.'" He says, "Oh, you've been very angry with Swami." And he turned to Ray and he says, "You know how it is. She gets angry with you too." Oh, such a precious, precious time. And I didn't know what to say. And I wanted to say, "Swami, I haven't been angry with you. But how can you tell the Lord he just said something that wasn't right, And so all I could think of to say was, "Oh, Swami," I said, "you are my mother. You are my father. You are my dearest friend." And he looked at me and he said, "You are my daughter. You are my friend. You are my devotee." All of this was so much at the time that the impact of it all didn't hit me until much, much later. And one of the things that came to me was that very early in our relationship with Swami, he had told me that everything he gave me was to be shared with all of the devotees. So I realized then that the reason he had said that to me was that I was to share it with all of the devotees. That was his expression of love for all of us. So one of the things that I did when I got home was I wrote this out so that it could be for every devotee. And if you will indulge me for a moment, I will read you the words that came It's called the still small voice of Sai. Elijah looked for God in the earthquake, in the fire of the relentless sun, and in the scorching, sand-filled desert wind. But it was only at the mountaintop of inspiration that he finally slowed the mind's frantic pace. Hearts chastened, pride rebuked, in total surrender, he heard within himself the still, small voice. Moses prayed in desperation as those with him groaned in hunger, lost faith in God, and craved only pleasures of the senses. In his attempt to lead them out of Egypt, Moses learned that an external out was no out at all. Egypt was the multitude of desires that dwelt within the mind. But desires, fears, and lack of faith are only static, momentarily drowning out God's ever-present voice. The divine word never began and will never end. Its patient teaching is broadcasting perpetually, saying to all, as it said to Moses, stop sinning. To find peace in your heart and joy in your life, love God, not things. Honor your parents and set aside time for holy thoughts. Jesus followed these commandments and taught others to do the same as he. He knew himself to be the Son of God. His Father was always with him. In God there is no lack, he said, and multiplied the fish and bread. He preached the truth that his Father dwelt in the kingdom of heaven, and that the kingdom of heaven is within each one. Seeking purification for himself and all mankind, he heard a voice from heaven speak aloud, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." And now, once more, another comes to lead his people to the promised land, the holy city whose builder and maker is God, the kingdom of the inner voice, no longer a mystery teaching or a hidden truth. Sai announces, I am God. I am the I am, the eternal absolute, the all in all. I am always with you. His form has been seen, his presence felt, and his voice heard, wherever man has stilled the body, silenced the mind, and listened in faith. Wherever you are, he is. His physical presence is here on earth to bless our eyes with his majesty, to caress our ears with the precious words which instruct us to serve others, to love all mankind, and to know ourselves to be God, the same as he. When we have found peace in the true understanding of who we are, joy that no one is lost but all are saved, then he speaks words which bring balm to Gilead, fulfillment to the yearning heart. You are my daughter. You are my friend. You are my devotee. Eliminate the static of the senses. and you will hear it. Quiet the mind's myriad desires, and you will hear it. Listen quietly, you will hear it. Listen intently, you will hear it. You are my son. You are my friend. You are my devotee. We are all one. We are all we. I want to share another little incident from the interview in Puttaparthi, February 1st of this year. We had two very dear friends with us, and the husband is suffering from cancer and has been told that he has only a short time to live, that there is nothing further that can be done for him. And the wife has a problem of facial neuralgia, which is, I am told, one of the most painful ailments that anybody can possibly have, and that it is virtually impossible to cure it or eliminate it. That those people that suffer from that condition take stronger and stronger painkillers until finally the painkillers are of no use. And my friend had been struggling with this condition for many, many years. So in the interview room, Swami asked first the husband, he said, "What do you want?" And he said, "Swami, I have been told that I have only a short time to live. I don't know whether I should go on with chemotherapy or radiology. What should I do, Swami?" And Baba said, "You do whatever gives you peace of mind. I am helping." Do whatever gives you peace of mind. I am helping. And then in his usual selfless way, my friend spoke to Swami of his wife, and he said, "Will you heal Betty's face?" Swami said, "Yes." And he leaned over and he touched her face, and he explained to the group. He said, "The face is in great pain. It pulsates like this, great pain. But I am taking care." And he touched the face, and she had been taking 5 painkillers a day up until that moment. She has taken a total of 2 painkillers. I mean, not 2 a day, a total of 2 since that incident. Swami healed this pain which the doctors cannot heal, don't know how to heal, and did it instantly. And it's just very, very difficult for us to accept and to imagine this kind of love that's there for us, to care for us. Why does he not cure all of our ills? Well, he has told us that because the ills we suffer from bring us closer and closer. They cause us to become seekers. And as long as that ill is working for our good, he does not heal it. But at the proper time, He is able and willing to take away all of these bodily ailments. I had, on one occasion when he asked me what I wanted, I was feeling some sense of my mortality, or at least the mortality of the body. And so I said to him, Swami, will you be with me at the time of my death? And he looked at me like, why are you talking like that? And he said, I am always with you. I am around you. I am beside you. I am above you. I am beneath you. I am within you. I am always there. Now, as I told you, he wanted me to share that with you. Everything he says for me is for everyone. And I think it's so important that we remember in every situation in which we find ourselves, he is there. He will always be there for you. Whenever you need him, whenever you call upon him, he is there. The still, small voice of Sai is right within you. Sai Baba.